What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Thought Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan, and in this podcast, we interview past and current thought leaders in the space of health, wealth, and relationships in hopes to reaching past, current, and most importantly, aspiring thought leaders, people that have a message in their heart, they have a mastery in their brain, and they're looking to get it out into the world. Today is episode 14. And we spoke with Colleen Reilly in the realm of relationships and really in the realm of personal story and personal journey. It's like a relationship to self podcast. She was incredible. A little bit about her. She is a wife, mother, grandmother, business owner, board member for a national historic landmark, and a survivor of a rare form of cancer. She's got a Hallmark-like story, and she talks about it so humbly. It was really, really fun. Her experiences resonate deeply, fostering a sense of shared humanity and emotions. You're going to get a bunch of aha moments that she had in her life. We're going to talk about things like fear and curiosity and how they can clash at times and how they can actually be teammates and they can actually work with each other to help us get outside of our comfort zones. Colleen shows you how obstacles are nothing more than challenges to overcome. Her life's a testament to resilience. She's a natural storyteller. She talks about the boundless potential within us all. It's kind of this why not mindset that she's going to give you. And she's going to use her story, growing up with her dad, tapping into curiosity at a young age, thanks to Donny Osmond. And then using that same mindset to work through a rare form of cancer. Duodenal cancer only affects 0.03% of the population. How she got through that, how she started working on a historic monument, a historic schooner, and then used that experience to leverage herself to go on a schooner ride that lasted 25 days and nights through the Gulf of Mexico. She's going to tell you what she learned in that time, what the darkness in the middle of the ocean taught her, the beauty of it, the challenges of it. It was an incredible podcast. It was an incredible interview. So if you are looking to get outside your comfort zone, you'd like a good story to listen to on your way to work, you're kind of wrestling with the fear of getting outside your comfort zone and the curiosity of what if, give this podcast a listen. Give us a like and a subscribe. If you haven't already, tell people about it. We want to reach the everyday person to share their messages to the world, people that have stepped outside, they've got uncomfortable, and they've made a name for themselves. They made a story for themselves. We hope it resonates with you. And as always, we hope you enjoy today's podcast. Let's get to it. Welcome back, everybody, to the Thought Leader Podcast, episode 14. I'm your host, Dylan. And today we are speaking to Miss Colleen, the adventurer, the sailor, the cancer survivor. We're going to be talking in the realm of relationships today, kind of hearing the odyssey of your life, which I'm very excited about. Colleen, welcome to the Thought Leader Podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you. It's going to be fun. And I want to start with the title of the podcast. Everybody gets this question first.
Okay.
I haven't got sick of it yet. It's been 14 episodes. It's called the Thought Leader Podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
That word is pretty subjective. It's pretty vague for some people. I think thought leader means something different to everybody. So you being on the podcast and you hear a term like that, being a thought leader, what does being a thought leader mean to you?
Being a thought leader to me means taking those thoughts in your head, whether it be project-based, whether it be relationship-based, and putting them to work with whatever you do. So in other words, if I think of a project, then being the thought leader, I need to be able to take that thought of that project and put it out to the universe. Hopefully, I'll find other people who are interested in that thought. Maybe I might find somebody who wants to learn about that thought.
Mm-hmm.
And you collaborate as a team then, working together and then sharing the word, the project, the results, however it turns out.
Yeah, just like we're going to get to a 25-day trip that you had in the Gulf of Mexico. You're used to working in teams. You're used to adventure. You've had some hiccups in the story of your life, right? Like one that I think you said, is it 0.03 or 0.3% of people that get this form of cancer? Is that it?
0.03%.
My
Yes.
gosh. So you had the hiccup, but I love to know where stories start. When I was asking you questions about yourself leading up to today's podcast, it's all about the adventures you've taken in life. You seem like an adventurous soul. I'm curious, where do you think that spark of adventure began? Like, could you take us back to the moment where this hunger for adventure was started in your life?
I'd have to say it was with my dad.
Mm.
I remember being a little girl, and of all things, it was his birthday, but he took me to a Donny Osmond concert.
Mm-hmm.
And we were leaving before the concert was over. And I was like, wait, where are we going? He took me out from the auditorium around to a back door where the tractor trailer trucks were with all the equipment. And he had me stand there. What are we doing, Dad?
Mm.
He was hoping that Donny Osmond and the rest of the crew would come out that door.
Mm.
And when all of a sudden it got too crowded. So my dad says, come on, let's go. Somehow he found out where the Osmonds were staying in Nashville. And next thing I know, we're at the hotel. So I think it was my dad's willingness to do those things that are different and unique to create those memories.
Mm.
And ever since then, I just ran with it. And I ended up doing the same thing with my own 3 children. Come on, guys, let's go. Where are we going? Shh, just be quiet. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
And in hindsight, they even have had some great adventures because of it.
Yeah, it's almost like, hey, let's see what we can get. Let's see if it's possible, right? Maybe it's possible, maybe it's not, but let's put us in a situation
Right.
where we have a shot at it. Did this have a big influence in your younger years before we get into sailing and all that? Like, what was the biggest influence it had for you, in act 1 of your life?
Oh, just curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
If I saw something or somebody and I wanted to know more about them, Dad would kind of nudge me with his elbow and say, well, go ask.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, as a little kid, you're going, what? I'm going to go? But I learned to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
The worst someone could say is, no, leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
Or that was how I learned Irish step dance. We were out for St. Patrick's, and I went up and asked the girl, what are you doing? And she said, Irish step dance. I said, well, wait, isn't that like clogging? She said, Irish step dance came first.
Mm-hmm.
And so off to the side, she taught me a few steps, and I'd go somewhere else and I'd see something and I'd learn from that. So I'm very curious, and I'm very determined to learn whatever it is.
And I want to kind of stick with that curiosity, trying things new. Because really what sparks a lot of what I'd like to chat about today is a deeper subject, right? Of getting this rare form of cancer, right? If you don't mind, I'd love to talk about this part of your life, right?
Sure.
Going into it as someone that had curiosity spark, did something new, consistently got outside their comfort zone. One, how did it hit you? How did it come up? And 2, how did that mindset of curiosity help you through it?
Curiosity definitely helped. I was just going through life.
Mm-hmm.
My kids were in 2 of them were in college, 1 was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Life was going great. Had just moved to Florida about 2 years before. And it started out, Dylan, like indigestion.
Hmm.
And for the first time in years, my oldest child, my son, had moved back in. So I'm thinking, oh, it's just readjustment. I'm stressed out. Well, between September to December of 2014, it kept getting worse.
Hmm.
And I was burping a lot. And I was craving chocolate. I'm not much of a drinker,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're at the beach, you pour a Yeti cup and it sits there all day, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could go through one of those in 15 minutes and it didn't faze me.
Really?
So finally, I got so dehydrated that my husband said, you're going to the hospital, period, end of story. Originally, I was treated like it was an ulcer, but something else was going on. I went in for the CT. They told me it was cancer. They said I wasn't going home. I was like, darn, no chocolate shake then either, which I was hoping to have when we figured out what was going on. And instantaneously, I had to stay in the hospital. I was in the hospital over in Panama City for about 10 days. And then I was transferred to Shands, which is the teaching hospital at University of Florida, Gainesville. You're shocked. You're stunned. At the time, I was only 49. I was like, how can this be happening? Mm-hmm. What was really scary was when you asked the general surgeon, what do you do? And he says, make sure you're right with God. Excuse me? Like, can't you give me the medical encouraging side of this? You know? I had my choice, just so to speak. I could have gone to Mayo in Jacksonville. I could have gone to University of Birmingham. I'm sorry, UAB, University of Alabama, Birmingham. Mm-hmm. Or I could have gone to Shands in Gainesville. I had no idea. This was so much bigger than me. Mm-hmm. So I literally laid there in bed that night and said, just put me where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. I ended up in Gainesville, which was absolutely perfect. It's a teaching hospital. And with my Irish wit, you can only imagine. When they were putting the PIC line in, you're supposed to be real quiet. The nursing instructor is telling the students, now, if you do this right, you'll hear a pop when it goes in the right direction. And all of a sudden I said, Pietà, I heard the pop. And she looked at her nursing students. She said, that doesn't happen all the time. Of course not. 0.03% of the population ggets duodenal cancer. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, I'm going to be the medical specimen here.
I apologize. You talk about wit, you talk about curiosity. I mean, I want to hear more of your story as well. What do you feel is the biggest strength that you had, or what is the biggest thing you leaned into to be able to go through something so serious where someone's saying, hey, get right with God is like your advice. Like, what was it that kind of pushed you through this?
Initially, it was the fear. Mm-hmm. And I have my family. So I'm like, I'm 49. I can't go anywhere. The kids need me, even though they are young adults. What do I do? And the way I'm talking is exactly how I felt, mm-hmm. that stutter. And then I started reading everything I could about the anti-cancer diet, what to expect about chemo and things. And that was really hard for me because my father had had small cell lung cancer, mm-hmm. 4 years prior, and he got really sick with the chemo. So, of course, all of these things are going through your head. And I had to turn it around after I read this one book called The Cancer Conqueror. And he talks all about positive attitude. And I remember on the floor when my dad was in the hospital back in Nashville, some of the nurses had said, your dad's going to get through this because he's got people surrounding him with love, because he's got that positive attitude. And so I told myself the same thing. Instead of chemo being a poison going through my body, it was like, as they say in Jamaica, liquid sunshine, Mon. Mm-hmm. And it was going in to burn out the bad weeds, mm-hmm. so the healthy cells could grow.
So for you, it's the fear almost pushed you at first of like, all right, there's people that I have in my life that I'm going to get through this. Then that leans to this positive mindset. It's like, how can I throw a positive spin on all this? You as a sailor, we're going to get into some of that. Do you have now in hindsight any sailing analogies that helped you through a difficult time in your life, like dealing with cancer?
Oh, let's see. I'd have to combine it. It's always darkest before the dawn, which is very true when you're out on the water and there's nothing around you except the dark water, the dark sky, and maybe a few stars. And then the other part of that is no matter how bad the storm of life might be, you're going to get to the other side.
Hmm.
You might be a little battered and beaten. You might have to make some repairs, but you're going to get through it.
Yeah, and it's almost holding that belief, right? Because I'd imagine when it's the darkest, you're like, is this ever going to end?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's typically right before it. So it's holding out that belief. And I also, just because you said it's earlier, it's having a team around you, right?
Oh,
It's
yes.
having that support group around you, that love around you that makes it easier to lean in more to that positive psychology or those positive affirmations. Like, I got people with me here. I think that's huge. What do you feel like the biggest thing, the cancer story, like what was the biggest lesson your cancer journey taught you? You know, for everything that you've done now, what was the biggest lesson?
Relax.
Yeah.
Don't be at such a breakneck speed that it is okay to give your body permission to rest.
Hmm.
If you're tired, go take a nap. 15 minutes is not going to hurt you. Just go rest. I just learned something the other day. It's called fika, Fika. And in Switzerland, everybody has fika. It's literally a coffee break. Whether they stop what they're doing at work, grab a cup of coffee and a pastry, whether it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and they go sit outside with a coffee or tea and something sweet. But that just that hit home for me.
Mm-hmm.
Was that fika. Take that break. You're going to end up being more productive afterwards because you don't feel like you're chained to your chair or you've got drudgery.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a fun word to say, too.
As soon as you said it, I'm like, I kind of like it. I just want to say fika. Fika. Today's podcast is brought to you by not only Thought Leader, it's also brought to you by the word fika. How long was this cancer journey for you going through?
I was very fortunate. I had what's known as the Whipple surgery.
Mm-hmm.
It's the granddaddy of all GI surgeries
Mm-hmm.
because they remove your gallbladder, your spleen. In my case, it was the head of my pancreas, the duodenum, which is the connector between the stomach and the small intestines. And they have to move 2 major arteries to do this. I was fortunate to have it done robotically. So I really have only like a couple little dents instead of years ago where they would do a chevron sliced or an umbrella sliced scar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know for sure, but they've said the surgery was about 7 hours. And then I was in the hospital probably 5 more days, making sure all systems were go. And then I did chemo every other week for 6 months. It was not fun being on somebody else's schedule, but I knew I had to do it.
Yeah.
When the doctor said I was surgically cleared, initially I was like, well, if I'm surgically cleared, why do I have to do chemo?
Mm-hmm.
And it was explained just in case.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want any of those bad cells floating around that we're not aware of. So I did it, and knock on wood, it's been 10 years now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I always tell people, and forgive my language, just because my mom is a breast cancer survivor, and like seeing her go, you're a fucking warrior, right? To be able to go through something like that, I think you need to know that. But you
don't think of it, Dylan, when you're in the middle of it, you don't see yourself as the warrior. Mm-hmm. You just see yourself doing it. And I would assimilate that to probably the guys in our military. Mm-hmm. The guys and girls in the military don't think about it. They just do their job. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards you go, oh my gosh, what did I just go through?
Yeah. I know you were telling me earlier that that's some of the people that you want to work with, some of the people you want to speak to, some of the people that you want to help. You have this affinity towards people that have served, right? And finding like the parallel of what you're going through and what they're going through, like you even say right there with the warrior. And then everything that you've done after it. Honest question, do you feel you would have gotten into sailing schooners, spending 25 days in the open ocean if you didn't go through this cancer journey?
I would like to think I would have, just because that's my nature. Mm-hmm. But the impetus to do it was that much stronger afterwards. And anytime there's been something that's a once in a lifetime chance, I'm going to take it if I can. It was awkward. One, because I was like, are you sure I can leave the family? The kids are all grown, but that was weird leaving my husband for that long. No cell phone, no computer, no nothing. And it was the most glorious experience that I've had.
How did it come up, if you don't mind me asking, right? Because,
Sure.
like, not many people are like, yeah, by the way, did I tell you that this opportunity came up and I sailed for 25 straight days? Like, how did this come to be?
Well, obviously, growing up in Chicago, I was landlocked. Then I moved to Nashville when I was little with my parents. Definitely landlocked there too. But my children had been involved with Young Marines and Sea Cadets. So they were able to have some exposure to sailboats. We moved here in 2012 to Florida, Panhandle, wonderful little beach town. And I ended up seeing this 63-foot long schooner at the dock in a nearby town. Of course, what do? Oh my gosh, what is that? Tell me all about her. So I found out she was a rum runner.
Mm-hmm.
They would bring the barrels of rum up. She was a mail carrier. She was a cargo offloader. Her draft is so shallow that she was able to go out to the tall ships that couldn't come into the shallow waters where the ports were and offload their cargo, whether it be furniture, material, rum, wine. So when I heard that story, I was like, wow, that's fascinating. And I was told that I could become a member of the Friends group. The Friends group is in charge of keeping her up maintenance wise and taking her out and sailing her. I said, sign me up. And they said for $50. Now, Dylan, this was the crazy part. $50 to become a member. And I could go sailing on it anytime, along with my husband and my 2 daughters that were in the house. I was like, no, you mean $50 each time? They said, no, as a member, you go however many times you want. Sign me up. And then we had to move it from a little town called Apalachicola to another little town called Carabel. One was for the Antique Boat Show. One was for a river fest. And they asked for crew members. I'd never done it. And so I raised my hand. I said, can I? Been on a boat before? I don't think a bass boat kind of fits that one, and they then asked, can you follow directions? Yes, sir. And that was when it started.
And so one, crazy, $50 and you're in.
Yep.
Right. Like, that's amazing. You start doing small things with them. How does a 25-day trip come about? Where you take the schooner through the Gulf of Mexico for 25 days, 25 nights.
Yep. So that came about because Hurricane Michael totally destroyed the Governor Stone schooner. And while we're rebuilding it, there happened to be a 131-foot schooner coming down from Maine, coming around Key West, and they were going to go on over to Galveston. Well, people in the sailing world all kind of know each other. And I mean, it's like RVing. It's like anything. You've got that automatic family. So that schooner, the Harvey Gamage, was coming through. And one of their crew members got in touch with me, since I'm the president of the Friends of the Governor Stone now. And they said, hey, we're going to come through Panama City. Can our kids get off and see the governor? Can we do something, team up? I said, absolutely. Well, then they said something about the possibility of needing volunteer adult crew members. And I said, what does that entail? So I met the boat, the schooner over in Biloxi. And as a volunteer adult, we went from Biloxi, 200 nautical miles off the coast down to Key West.
And what is it in you that says yes to that? Like, what do you feel it was that goes, yep, I'm in?
I don't know. It was just one of those things that if the opportunity's there, take it and run with it. Yeah. It was definitely out of my comfort zone. I have never been a crew member like that. Oh yeah, Governor Stone, you toss a few lines up towards whoever's on the dock. You push away. We were doing everything, Dylan, that the regular crew members were doing. We hauled up the anchor. We raised the sails. Each one of us I say kids, the teenagers that got academic credit for this. And then the adult leaders, we got to man the helm. Everything that I ever could have wished for when you read a book or you see the movie about these great ships, I was living that.
What would you say was the best part of being on a schooner that spent 25 days, 25 nights in the sea? What's the best part of it?
The whole thing.
Come on.
No, I'm serious. I can tell you what the worst part was.
Yeah, tell me the worst part.
The worst part was our very first night when we left Biloxi, and we had 2 to 3 foot seas, and then it was so foggy that my hair was drenched.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 2 of us on bow watch, and all of a sudden I realized I needed to go talk to Poseidon over there.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell the senior high school kid, and I'm like, I'll be right back. And I kind of go over there and I come back. Okay, I got this. Got that out of my system. Oh, hold on. Did that again. Now, we have no point of reference, and that's what happens with seasickness. If you can look at something, you can maintain your equilibrium. I couldn't see anything but fog.
Mm-hmm.
And after the third time, I told Gabe, I said, Gabe, I'm just going to sit over here, okay? I'll watch over here. So that was the worst. But a couple days, and I was over the seasickness and doing everything we were.
If you're going to tell me the best part is everything, I'm going to come back to this to try to find if there's a specific moment that you would recall as the best. But I am curious with it. What are the nights like?
Oh, that was rough because even the adults stood a 4-hour watch. It seemed like all we did was eat, sleep, watch, eat, sleep, watch. Mm-hmm. So your watch might be from midnight till 4 a.m. You go back down below and you grab a couple hours sleep. You come up for breakfast at 8. There were 3 watches. And I think it was our 4th day. We started teasing. How long have we been on this boat now? We've been on 5 days, right? And then by the time it was the 8th day, we're like, we've been on here 12 days, right? Because of that constant flow, you lost all track of day and time.
What's the feeling like with it? Like, is it a sense of calm? Is it a sense of like odd paranoia that's kind of exciting? Like, what's the feeling that came along for it with you?
Definitely calm because of how you're out on the water. Curiosity all the way. Because you've got the pods of dolphins that are swimming beside you. You're looking to see if there's any sharks or turtles or anything, just so you can see that marine biology, that life. When you're down in the hold, and we had some really great bunks. I was so comfortable. If you thought about it, you could almost freak yourself out because of all that water pressure pushing on the hull. And if it was a gentle wave, it would just slap a little bit. That one night it was slapping kind of hard. And I'm like, okay, I'm not even going to think about what might happen if the boat broke apart.
It's nuts. Like I always like being out in the middle of the ocean at night where everything, you can't see anything, but you just know the immensity that's around you. It's got to be scary as hell, peaceful as hell, and like such a moment of like existentialism, if that makes sense, of just.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Watching the sun rise on one side while the moon is setting at the very same moment on the other side. The birds, you know how you've always heard that if you're close to land, the birds will be there? Absolutely 100% true. And they would take a break from flying and they would rest on the mast or wherever, and they would just hang out. And then when they were ready, they'd take off again.
Biggest lesson from it. I want to see if you have. I want to get to the point if you have other adventures next. But just to tie a bow on 25 days in the open ocean. Looking back right now, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you took from it?
That I could do it. I was nervous in the beginning, like I said, because I got seasick, and with having the Whipple, your fatigue is stronger than most people. So I really was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to do everything that everybody else was doing, raising the sails and whatnot. But I learned when I had to go down in the hold, you count 20 seconds and I'm good. Then I got to get back up. Or going down and my eyes were closed as I'm feeling where all my clothes were laid out because I couldn't get seasick while I was down there. So those are the takeaways. One is get out of your box.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're 20, 40, 80. Get out of your box and do something different. You'll surprise yourself to realize that it can be done.
Why do you feel, it's typically a question I like to ask at the end of every podcast, but it's just such an easy in right there. Why do you feel a lot of people, whether they're 40, 60, 80, don't get out of their box? And their box doesn't have to, out of their box doesn't have to be 25 days in the middle of the ocean, right?
No.
It could be so, but why do you feel, ego aside, that there's a good amount of people that don't get outside of that box?
I think it's because they don't know what's out there. They are in a rut, or they have the thought, why would I do that? Why not? Even it's like if it's taking Tai Chi classes or, I don't know, learning to water ski, whatever it is, there's no reason not to do it.
I love that.
And I think so many people miss out because they have the blinders on or they set their own limitations.
Yeah. I mean, I see you already as someone that chooses curiosity. You allow fear to push you rather than hold you back, right? Or you allow that why not to overpower, man, why would I do that? Or why should I do that? Which is beautiful. You're not going to be someone at the end of the day that asks yourself, man, why didn't I do this? Like, you're not dying with regret. You seem like an adventurous soul. What's the next adventure for Colleen?
Well, we want to get the Governor Stone rebuilt. She does not have bunks on her. So she's definitely a day sailor along the Gulf Coast. And once we get her back on the water, we want to do the grand tour of the Gulf Coast. She's based out of Panama City, and she was built originally in Pascagoula, Mississippi. So we definitely want to go that way. The captain that's rebuilding her, he's ready to take her to Cuba. I was like, sign me up, I'll go. I am working on my captain's license so that I would be able to officially pilot her.
Yeah.
So
for you, it's more sailing.
Absolutely.
How do people, let's say someone that's just easing out of their comfort zone, maybe they're easing into the sailing world. How do people find out more about you? How do people find out more about like the Governor Stone and the projects you're working on?
Okay. For the Governor Stone, we do have a website, and there'll be an addition to that website because we're also putting together a museum. What are we going to do with the spare parts that we can't use? We're going to put them somewhere. And I've seen other maritime museums that are amazing. But the Governor Stone website, we do have a Facebook page for that.
Okay.
How to get hold of me? Well, if you come to the Florida Panhandle area, you could look up catering because I have my own catering business.
Awesome.
And I also do motivational speaking and want to share my stories. One of them that I ran into somebody just the other day at CVS. She was in tears and she was on the phone and I didn't know who she was or what her story was. And something I heard her say, I've got to calm down. And I remember getting that little bottle of powdered magnesium, picked it up and I walked over to her and I said, here, hon, I don't know what's going on in your life, but here, this helped me. And she looked at me and just burst into tears more. And I said, I've been there, single mom, 3 kids. You're going to make it to the other side. And who knows, you may see me do that somewhere.
Yeah. I want to, if you don't mind giving me some of those links, I believe you did ahead of time. So I'm going to put them in the description following the Governor Stone, but also everything that you do and the speaking, because like I said, it's not like you're just trying to reach other potential sailors or schooner riders. Like you want to use your experience to help other people. Some of the takeaways I'm taking from today's podcast is, thank you so much for being on. One, a lot of people, when it comes to their comfort zone, it's like the fear overpowers, right? They almost look at fear as this opposing force. Whereas what I've been hearing from you today is like actually using it as fuel to push you to do something, to allow curiosity to work with fear rather than have to combat it. You said a couple of times, whether it's working through a cancer journey or working through doing another sailing trip, it's allowing nerves or allowing fear to push you into the darkness at times and know that it's going to be tough. And whether you're riding a schooner across the Gulf of Mexico or you're having a potential breakdown in CVS, that there's always darkest before the dawn. What can be possible on the other side of it? And the last thing being that getting outside of your comfort zone, getting outside of that box, we might ask ourselves, well, why would I do this? It's more of then coming back with that and saying, why not? Right? I love the power of curiosity that I learned today from our talk, and I really do appreciate it, and I hope it reaches 3 people that listen to the podcast. We don't have to reach everybody, but a few. If you're watching this is for any listeners, make sure you like and follow, but also put a comment below. Like, what is the biggest thing you took away from today's podcast, and why is it so important to you? Colleen, any final thoughts from you from today's podcast?
I'm going to quote my dad again. Dad always said, do the best you can. If it's a C in math and that's the best you can do, that's okay. If you're going to be a ditch digger, that's okay. Be the best damn ditch digger there is out there. And just do it. Ask for help too. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Don't be afraid to get that support team with you, that crew, if you will. Colleen, thank you so much for being on today's podcast. Thank you so much for giving us the time. And most importantly, thank you so much for spreading your message and your mastery with the world.
Thanks, Dylan.